Hey, Tyler Ramsey. This is Painful Lessons Podcast. We own mistakes. Also I have this new hat on. I'm real excited about it. Painfullessons.com. This is the dopest hat. My buddy Hank sourced them for us. I couldn't be happier. Who doesn't love a good trucker hat? Painfullessons.com. I have a guest today, and I'll just say, as we've been chatting before we got started, I'm like, stop talking. Stop talking. All the stuff that you're saying is gold. I know my dear friend, Aaron Jayne, who is a minister, and he runs a church and leads a church, and it's called Coastline. It's in San Diego. It's an incredible, incredible church. So beautiful. One of the most gorgeous, just could not be cooler. And he is a real historian, and he's an expert on the Bible, and he has come. For one thing, I couldn't be more inspired to talk about David and to learn from the lessons of King David. And so he comes off as a complete authority on the subject. And it's also a really close friend. I'm now looking at you. I'm like, Aaron, thank you so much for coming.
Man, I love being here. I've loved you for many, many years. And so anything you're ever a part of, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm a fan.
Thanks.
Huge fan.
Yeah, we have a real love affair.
Yeah.
And we met through the Los Angeles Dream Center.
That's right.
And
that's right. I was part of the Dream Center from the time I was 19 years old. I came out with Matthew Barnett. He was 20, I was 19. We went to college together. We came out to start this crazy venture in the middle of Los Angeles. And neither one of us had any idea of what it was like to be like a street level homeless drug addict or gang member. And we're just like two white boys in the middle of a ghetto trying to figure it out. And it was wild.
So wild. And I know some of the happiest times of my life were hanging out with you, and my friend and our friend Army Hammer.
Oh yeah.
And we would go with his family to church.
And Tulsa. We went to Tulsa. Remember Doug?
Yeah, of course.
Doug, every restaurant we went to. Oh man, that was amazing.
We went on a road trip to Tulsa.
That was wild.
We went on a road trip to Tulsa, but I remember some of the most wholesome times of my life. I remember going in Army's dad's car. He always had these incredible cars, and we'd have breakfast, and then we would go to the Dream Center, and it was just really a wonderful time of my life.
It was heart-to-heart talks with guys who were living life and coming through lots of different struggles and pain and problems and hurt and just trying to figure things out, and didn't figure it all out back then. Like, it took us years later before we really started figuring out a lot of the issues that we all were living with at the time.
Sure. It is funny thinking back to that time, because I think of it as like one of the most wholesome times of my life, but I also was struggling with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
You said that you were struggling with all kinds of stuff.
And I was, when you knew me back in the day, I was the biggest liar, manipulator you could ever possibly imagine. Not in a way where I wanted to control or hurt people, but in a way where I wanted to keep my stuff a secret. I wanted to keep my addictions hidden, because when I came to Los Angeles, I was coming out of a lot of stuff, trauma from childhood, abandonment, rejection, abuse, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I just to take you back for a moment,
Sure.
Just to give you the genesis of where my addiction came from, and I'm going to explain my addiction too.
Right.
My dad abandoned me when I was 11. I went through a lot of trauma, a lot of therapy over the years. My therapist asked me one time, ask your mom to write you a letter of all of her memories of you for the first 2 years of your life. I was the firstborn son. She should have lots of memories of me. She wrote me and she goes, I can't remember anything from the first 2 years of your life. I'm the firstborn. The only thing she remembered is when my brother was born, I tried to smother him with a pillow when I was around 3. That was her first memory of me.
Oh my word.
Well, tracing it all out, what happened was my father was a sex addict, and they had a terrible marriage, and my father adored me. He was like, I was the pride and joy, the firstborn son. So when I was born, my dad gave me all the love and attention my mom wanted. And so she almost resented me. And she bonded with my brother and sister, but never really bonded with me. So I never had a real emotional contact with my mother. When I was 12 years old, my dad had abandoned me. Our family rejected us, left, didn't see him again for years later. I was hurting. I was lonely. I was broken. My next door neighbor introduced me to pornography for the first time at 12 years old.
Oh my God.
What I saw in the pages of those magazines, because it was way before the internet, I'm old, was something that I never saw in my mother. It was a smile.
Oh my word.
It was somebody that looked at me as if I was wanted, as if I had value. Now, it was a fantasy. It was a false fantasy. It was a sick fantasy. These girls in the magazine had no idea who I was.
Right.
But the way pornography was designed to be a hook inside of your soul, it's to make you feel wanted, to make you feel desired, like somebody because I didn't get that from my mother. So for a lot of people who go down the dark addiction of pornography, it's not the sex that starts the whole process. It's the rejection, the abandonment they're feeling. And all of a sudden, for the first time, this makes me feel wanted. It makes me feel desired. It makes me feel like I'm alive. And then the hook dives deep and then, starts neurochemically rewiring your brain and everything else. And then it's years later. So I was a sex addict for 23 years. And I wish I could say that pornography was the worst of it.
Okay.
But it went way, way beyond pornography where, in every step of the way you lie to yourself. I told myself when I get married, I won't need it anymore. Marriage doesn't heal sex addiction. It makes it 10 times worse.
Explain.
It blows it up. Marriage doesn't fix your past problems. That's why I always tell people, deal with your past before you get married, because your past will show up in your present and really damage your future if you haven't dealt with it. And so for me, I had all of these addictions thinking marriage would cure me. And so I got married, and our marriage wasn't great because I had addictions. I was hiding, I was lying, I was manipulated, I was emotionally completely unavailable. I was like a zombie emotionally.
Right.
I knew how to put on the act. I was an extrovert, so I could put on the act. I could make everyone feel great around me because I had that. I mean, you remember, I had an ability to make people feel loved. And that was pure and genuine, but there was also a mask of it in the sense of I never wanted you to look back here. And so I would be transparent and vulnerable, you would think, about certain areas of my life. Oh, look, my dad rejected me. How sad is my life? And so you'd feel sorry for me and give me sympathy in this area so I could hide what was really going on in my life because I was ashamed.
Right.
I felt dirty. I felt broken. And I didn't want you to see this because if you saw that, you might reject me. So I became a very good liar and a very good manipulator, not, again, to control people or abuse people, but to protect myself, to keep my junk hidden. And I was that way with my wife. And so my wife and I never had a great relationship. And so what happens is she, in my mind, because I'm selfish and I'm an addict, she's not giving me what I need, what I deserve.
Right.
And so I started going outside of the marriage to figure out what I needed and deserved. Now, I never had an affair because I couldn't emotionally connect to anybody, because I was broken. I couldn't have like a deep relationship with anybody. So for me, it was one night stands, and it was a lot of different situations through the early years of our marriage, and it was broken. And honestly, she had every right to leave me. And fortunately, through the grace of God, He took a broken mess of a life and a broken mess of a marriage and began to put us back together. And that's really our story. And I think that's why our church resonates with you, because we always say our church is a no perfect people allowed church.
Yeah.
I tell our church all the time, if you truly knew the things I've done in my past, you'd be shocked they let me run a church, because I'm the biggest sinner here. Like, the things I've done were horrible.
I didn't know this thing.
Yeah.
Trust me. I'm way more excited about the church right now.
Yeah. I mean, so our whole church is built for people with a past. My dream was to build a church for people who feel like the roof's going to cave in on my head. I can't go in there. The roof will cave in my head. I want them to feel loved and comfortable. I want them to find the grace that I found that I did not deserve. I could have never earned it. And honestly, that's why as a church, we're so passionately against religion. Because to me, religion is man's way to try to get to God, man's way to try to earn God's approval. The gospel, which is what Jesus came to start. You go back to the first century, the word gospel had a historic definition and meaning, and it did not mean the story of Jesus. It was a news bulletin. It was a good news bulletin. It was reserved for very important events, like when Augustus Octavius became the Caesar of Rome, they sent out a gospel bulletin to the world. Here begins the gospel of Caesar Augustus, the Son of God, Prince of Peace, Savior of the world. That's what it actually said. 50 years, I think, before Jesus was born. So when Jesus declared the gospel, it was almost a political statement more than a religious statement. Because he's saying, I'm giving you good news. And what Jesus was doing is saying, what I'm starting is the exact opposite of religion.
Wow.
Religion at its best is good advice. do these rules, follow these code, follow this command, live this diet, walk this way. And at the end of your life, you'll reach your success, whether it's reincarnation, enlightenment, virgins in heaven, whatever it is.
Sure.
The gospel is good news. Good news and good advice are radically different. They're nowhere near the same. In fact, if you've ever run a marathon, that's the first use of the word gospel we can trace in history goes back to the marathon. It was the Battle of Marathon. If you ever saw the movie 300, the second follow-up movie was the Battle of Marathon.
Yeah.
The Persians were supposed to destroy the Greeks. And against all odds, the Greeks won the battle. The people of Athens are sitting in the city of Athens freaking out and terrified because they know if the Greeks lose at Marathon, they're next on the list. They're going to become slaves. They're going to be tortured and killed. They're going to lose their wives, their children. They're going to lose their businesses, their homes, everything. Persia will wipe them out.
Right.
Can you imagine the fear they were living in Athens that day? The torment, knowing this battle is going on. No. So when the Greeks won the battle, if you read Greek history, what it says is that we need to send an evangelist. That was the Greek word, evangelist, with the gospel to Athens. And so this evangelist runs 22 miles, which is where we get the modern day marathon, from Marathon to Athens with the gospel. He runs into the city, and here's what he says: "We fought for you, we won, you're no longer slaves, you're free." When you heard that gospel message that day, how would you have felt? Relief, joy.
Completely.
I tell people, if what you've heard about Jesus doesn't make you feel the way they felt in Athens that day, you didn't hear a gospel, you heard religion. Mm. We as humans work very hard to make something beautiful ugly. And I think that's what we did with Christianity. Christianity has a huge branding problem today. And people are rejecting God and Christians, but they're not rejecting God and Christians. They're rejecting this warped idea of what they think about God and Christians. Because if they ever did the intellectual hard work to figure out what they're rejecting, they would realize, how in the world could I reject something that's beautiful?
Yeah.
But we've just made it ugly.
Do you think that when you say that you want and are targeting only people who are at the point even where they're think, man, I've made so many mistakes. This church is going to fall down on my head. I feel it's fascinating that a lot of churches don't put that out there, considering who our heroes are. Other than Jesus, our heroes are some of the most broken, difficult people.
Yeah.
And King David, I think, is at the top of the list in terms of someone who's made the greatest mistakes.
King David, I relate to him a lot because he was so deeply flawed. You know, I was in Israel a few years ago with one of the top archaeologists and antiquity scholars and historians in the world. I mean, this guy's brilliant. He is the modern day Indiana Jones. He's become a dear friend of mine,
wow.
Mark Turnage. And he made a statement that shocked our group of Americans. You know, because in America, we've got, we fantasize and romanticize so many things as Americans. And he said this, he said, King David was way more Saddam Hussein than he ever was George Washington. Mm. And that just is offensive to an American because we want to romanticize David in scriptures, the man after God's heart. And we love George Washington, obviously, is like, the hero and founder of our nation. And when I heard that, it was like, it was shocking and offensive. But then as I thought about it, I was like, David was a bloodthirsty dictator.
Yeah, unpack this.
David raped his special forces soldier who committed his life to defend David at a special forces level, raped the guy's wife, tried to cover it up. It didn't work, had the guy murdered. This is like the guy was loyal to him, faithful to him, honored him. And this really was a power rape situation because Bathsheba really didn't have much of a choice because of the power dynamic of who King David was and who she was. There's no telling what he told her, what leverage he had over her if it was just the position of power over her life. And so David was a very flawed, but I think if you go back and you really understand David, he was a traumatized kid. I mean, he dealt with a lot of trauma as a child. I mean, he's rejected by his family. The prophet comes to his dad and says, hey, get all your sons. One of your sons is going to be the next king of Israel. His own father doesn't even consider him worthy enough to be called.
Doesn't include him in the...
It'll never be David. David's no good. David will never be chosen. Left him out. He's attacked by a lion, attacked by a bear. And yes, we see the glamorous side of it that he won those battles.
Yeah.
But those are traumatizing experiences.
Sure.
And so he's got all this trauma. And then I think the other problem we have as modern readers is we want to, again, romanticize everything. So we want everything to be supernatural in the Bible. And there are incredibly supernatural things in the Bible that science can't explain. And that doesn't mean that the Bible's not true. It just means God's awesome. I mean, that's really all it means. I mean, because there are miracles. And so you've got the parting of the Red Sea. You've got Jesus walking on water. You've got a virgin getting pregnant. Those are things that happen in Scripture. So we want to make everything supernatural. But if you study the story of David and Goliath, this is not a supernatural story. This is not larger than life of God showing up and turning David into like one of the Avengers for 5 minutes so he could take down this giant. This was a very normal story. And what it is if you're a first century kid taking care of sheep all day, what are you doing? Well, David's writing songs, which teenage boys love to sit around and write poems to their girlfriend or write songs to their girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he's throwing rocks, which we as boys, if I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I don't have an iPad or iPhone or anything to distract me, I'm going to be throwing rocks or something because I'm a boy. That's what we do. And so he's out there throwing rocks all day. And so he's perfecting his craft as a slingshot artist. And what we don't realize as modern readers is a slingshot artist in that period could throw a rock the size of a baseball, 200 yards with pinpoint accuracy over 100 miles per hour. The Bible says there was men of Jabesh Gilead who could knock the hair off a camel's back left-handed. They were right-handed, but their right hands were injured in battle somehow, so they learned to throw with their left hand, and they were so skilled with their left hand they could knock the hair off a camel's back. Goliath never stood a chance to an ancient reader reading the story. Goliath is like, if you ever saw the Brad Pitt movie, I think Troy, when he's doing all that, that was Goliath's style of fighting. So think Brad Pitt, just a much bigger version of Brad Pitt.
Sure.
So Indiana Jones, one of my favorite scenes in Indiana Jones, you've got this guy with the swords and he's doing all these fancy swords. And what does Indiana Jones do? He pulls out a gun, shoots him dead. That's David and Goliath. Goliath brings a knife to a gunfight. He never stood a chance.
You know, I read I heard that the reason that fight went down the way that it did is because Harrison Ford had diarrhea that day. And so they reduced the scene to just him shooting the guy immediately.
But it's a great picture.
It's the best.
For David and Goliath.
Yeah.
And that's really what took place. We want it to be larger than life so that we don't have to, we want God to bless our laziness. I want God to bail me out of a jam, as opposed to develop my craft. And when there's an opportunity for my craft to do something great, I've spent time developing it.
Right.
I've spent time perfecting it. I've spent time working on my craft so that now, after developing it, God can use it in big ways. And, as an artist.
Many people think of God or just want God to just be like AAA.
Yeah.
I call you when I need you and you get me out of this jam that I got myself into.
And really, the David and Goliath story is God blessed his faithfulness. God didn't supernaturally show up and give him this superhuman ability to kill a giant.
Yeah.
God just blessed his faithfulness that day because he was ready to defend Israel. He was ready to defend his people. And what's also hilarious about the story is David didn't get the courage to fight the giant until he found out there was a princess involved.
Oh,
because the Bible said all the Israelites fled, meaning David. They all fled when Goliath had come out and taunt them. And then David's sitting by a campfire, and one of the soldiers says, "Hey, did you hear what's going to happen for the guy that kills the king, or a guy that kills the giant?" And David says, "What?" And they say, "He's going to get to marry the princess." And if you read the story, it's funny because David asked 3 more times to different groups of people. Hey, what's going to happen to the guy that kills the giant? Oh, he's going to get the princess. Who is this uncircumcised? I mean, he was fighting for a princess. Like he had his eye on the prize.
I didn't catch that part. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible story. And that's probably the highlight of David's life because from there's a lot of downhill moments. He was a terrible parent. He had a lot of problems with his children, probably because of the trauma from his childhood. He probably didn't want his kids to feel the way he felt growing up. Mm-hmm. And so he overcompensated in an unhealthy way. And it created a lot of mess in his family. Like he had a very broken, traumatic family.
You think he may have overcompensated, maybe spoiling his kids too much? Is that what you're saying?
Or avoiding confrontation, spoiling them. Like the Bible says he never interfered with Amnon, and Amnon goes on and rapes his sister.
Yeah.
And it clearly says David had never interfered with him. So David never corrected him. He was an absent father in Amnon's life.
Got it.
for whatever reason, the trauma, the selfishness, the pride, so there were a lot of, now the Bible is correct in saying David was a man after God's heart. And that's a hard statement for us to wrestle with because it doesn't make sense. How could somebody be so flawed and evil and at the same time love God and pursue God? I understand that now. Because the whole time I lived in my sin, in my brokenness and my addiction, I hated myself. I did terrible things. I was incredibly selfish, did things that really hurt my wife. And at the same time, I love God passionately. And what we want to do as humans is we want to say, I am this, but I am this. I am this, but I am this. And I went to a sex addiction clinic in Minnesota to a guy who's probably one of the best in the world at dealing with stuff. Used to work at Promises here in Malibu until the girl, funny story, I'm not going to mention his name or the name of the woman, but a celebrity he used to love to masturbate to was in the clinic seeing him as a counselor, and he's really, I can't do this is triggering me. After years of him being sober sexually, and I know, so he's done a lot of work out here in LA. And one of the things he taught me at the clinic that I went to there is he has this and symbol, ampersand, whatever it's called. He had statues of the and symbol all over the office.
Wow.
And he says, as an addict, what you want to do is say, I'm a good father, but I'm a sex addict.
Oh, and you want to say, and
I'm a good husband, but I'm a sex addict. And he goes, look, two things can be true at the same time. The but doesn't cancel out. This part of your life doesn't cancel out this part of your life. Yes, this is an issue and it needs to be dealt with. And it does have a negative impact over here, but it doesn't cancel out that both can be true. The truth is it's an and, not a but. Yes, I was a good father and I was a sex addict.
It's great.
Yes, I loved God with all of my heart and I was incredibly broken. And we're doing very destructive things that broke God's heart because of how much he loved me. God was never mad at me and my sin. God was broken for me because he saw how much it was hurting me. We think God hates sinners. There's nothing further from the truth. God loves sinners passionately. He hates sin because he hates to see any of his children suffering. He's a good father who loves us. And what breaks his heart is he sees how bad these things hurt us.
Sure.
So he hates these things because he doesn't want to see us hurt. And yet we confuse it. And again, it's part of the branding image we have. And so I had to come to terms with the and symbol. And to me, that's how I finally learned to understand David and how God could say he's a man after my heart and he's incredibly flawed. He's incredibly human. He's incredibly broken. And what the Bible is a book of very flawed, broken people. Very flawed, broken people. And that's why the Bible is unique to any other religious document. Because no other religion paints their founders in such brokenness. Like you got the founder of Christianity hanging on a cross, dying in defeat. No other religion would paint their founder that way.
Oh, great point. Great point.
No, because they got to be heroes.
Yeah.
They got to be superhuman. They got to be victorious. And here our founder is Jesus hanging on a cross, dying in defeat on a Roman cross of all things. The most despised. I mean, it just, when you study it historically, Christianity doesn't make any sense.
Explain, because
okay, if you look at Islam is a fascinating, remarkable story. And if you look at how Islam was founded, how it started, how it created, and how it survived, it makes complete sense to historians. There is no historian confused about why Islam is still here when you study its origin. Historians all over the world are completely dumbfounded when it comes to Christianity because it makes no sense. It should have never survived the first century. They did everything wrong. Everything wrong. And yet we're talking about it 2,000 years later. It makes zero sense. And let me give you a few things. First, they have women are the first ones who are eyewitnesses at an empty tomb. There is no way, if this was made up, they would have put women in the story. Because women can't testify in court because they're women.
Right.
Their testimony is not valid. The only reason women are in the story is because women are in the story. Because if men in the first century could get around that detail, they would have done it. They would have done it. They shot themselves in the foot from the very beginning. You've got, 500 eyewitnesses that see Jesus alive after the resurrection. Any one of them could have said that was a lie, and none of those documents would have survived the first century.
It is a great thing. It's like, and also all of the eyewitnesses were willing to die these terrible deaths and suffer the incredible consequences and for maintaining their truth going forward. And there's really nothing to be gained.
Yeah.
Nothing to be gained for them.
Well, the whole...
nothing material, nothing...
Yeah, the whole historiosity of the New Testament, to me, like, I love the story of Anne Rice. I don't know if you know Anne Rice, Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, I know the author.
Brilliant. She's passed away. Brilliant woman, regarded as a world-class historian.
Sure.
Now, she wrote, Gothic fantasy novels, but they cross hundreds of years of history. And what she was known for is all of those periods of time, she always had them accurate, like historically accurate, because she painstakingly worked hard as a historian. Well, Anne was a feminist, atheist, grew up Catholic, abandoned God, just as far as Christian as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
She was always fascinated by the Jews, because how did the Jews survive antiquity when so many other ancient civilizations never survived? Like, how many people groups do we don't even know their name because they were wiped out by genocide, by dictators, by Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, or the pharaohs of Egypt that we don't even know about?
Yeah.
And yet the Jews are still here, and everyone has tried to destroy them and wipe them off the map, throughout history. So she's fascinated with the Jews. So she reads all of the Jewish history she can find: Josephus, Tacitus, all the Jewish historians, Roman historians from the first century. She comes across the temple being destroyed in AD 72 or 76, I believe, and she's fascinated because the temple is one of the 7 wonders of the world at that time. Mm-hmm. It's destroyed. It was massive. It's destroyed, and she's like, this is such a significant moment in their history. I want to know more about this. So she, as every good atheist is taught, the Bible, the New Testament, is written 200 years after the time of Jesus. That's how these urban legends grow. Jesus didn't walk on water, but if you take a story and you pass it on from generation to generation, now he's walking on water.
Okay.
That's what atheists, a lot of academic atheists are taught, is that the New Testament was written 200 years after the time of Christ.
Right.
So she reads all 4 Gospels. Not one mention of the temple being destroyed. She's completely confused. The only mention is Jesus prophesying that it'll happen. It's like, why wouldn't they record that detail? It would affirm his message. This doesn't make any sense at all. Why aren't they telling us this?
Interesting.
Unless it hadn't happened yet. And if it hadn't happened yet, these aren't urban legends, they're eyewitness accounts. See, if you understand how documents are authenticated in the first century, it's all eyewitnesses. And so all of these bit characters you read in the New Testament aren't there randomly. They're the eyewitnesses that were interviewed to authenticate that passage of Scripture. Like John tells us the grass is green. Well, why would he include that detail? Nothing in Greek literature in the first century includes details like that. It's all this, Oedipus and things like that.
Sure.
But it includes these little, so it's written like a John Grisham novel.
Right.
Details that don't make any sense. Random details. Why? Because the eyewitness said it, and so it's put into the Scripture. So what Anne Rice does is she goes and she studies all of the academic critique against the New Testament. All of these scholars that are completely obliterating the New Testament as academically unreliable and historically unreliable. And in Anne Rice's words, here's what she said. She goes, I've never seen more biased scholarship in all my life. It was assumption, layered upon assumption, layered upon assumption, nothing foundational in their critique on the New Testament. She goes, but what I could not understand is how all of these academic scholars hated with such a passion a historical figure that never did anything bad. They could write about the tyrants of history, cruel, horrible people like Genghis Khan, emotionally ambivalent to it. But yet when they write about this character, Jesus, there's a hatred in their pen.
Yeah.
She could not understand that. And what happened as she began to dive in, she actually became a Christian. And she wrote an incredible book on her journey to faith, called Out of Darkness is what the book's called.
Called what? Out of Darkness?
It's her autobiography of coming to faith called Out of Darkness.
Wow.
And it's an amazing story of how she found faith again from being an atheist just because she couldn't figure out why they hated this Jesus figure who never did anything wrong. He had to be who he said he was. There's no other logical conclusion you can come to on why Christianity exists than Jesus is who he said he is, because they did everything wrong. It should not have survived. So it's fascinating when you really dive in and just be intellectually honest with it.
You know, you have a great point. I like the apologetics. The C.S. Lewis does a pretty, of all people, really takes a swing at explaining a lot of it. And I do think that it's wild. It's like there's more documentation on Jesus and who he was than really, I think, even than we have practically of Julius Caesar. I mean,
we have there's way more historical evidence outside of the Bible for Jesus than there ever was Julius Caesar. And then if you look at fragments of the Bible versus fragments of things like Oedipus or Socrates or Plato's writing, I think Oedipus, I could be way off on my facts. It's like 7 or 13 fragments of it remain that we were able to put together. Whereas with the New Testament and the Old Testament, there are literally thousands.
Right.
Thousands of these and none of them contradict. From different periods of time, none of them contradict. And so just this, even Jewish scholars today who do not believe in Jesus as the Son of God still use the New Testament to understand their culture in the first century because it's historically reliable.
Right.
Whether you believe the theological message of Jesus or not, the document is historically reliable to that period of time.
You could say, for example, you could go, I'm not sure he rose from the dead, but there was definitely a dude named Jesus, and he definitely hung out with these people.
And that's outside of the Bible. Jesus being crucified on the cross is in Roman records, not just in the Bible. So we know that happened according to Josephus. Now, the Bible also documents, but the Roman records document Jesus Christ being, not Jesus Christ, but Jesus, the one we call Jesus Christ, being crucified on a Roman cross.
What a hardcore way to go. Man.
Oh, it's brutal. The cross was not designed to kill somebody. The cross was designed to keep them alive as long as possible and as much agony as they could inflict. That was the purpose of the cross.
How long was he on the cross?
3 days before they, sorry. 6 hours. 6 hours before they had to puncture the heart area so that he would, be out.
Expire.
Yeah. And
The Passion is such a great movie.
Well, and here's the thing. There's so much anti-Semitism in our modern Christian gospel around the cross. Let me just give you a couple things. First off, you hear, I used to say this as a pastor. It's totally ignorant, but we would say the same people who cried out, Hosanna, Hosanna on Palm Sunday were the first ones to cry out, crucify him, on Good Friday. And we use that as how fickle human beings are.
Okay.
But the people of Jerusalem, the Jewish people, never turned their back on Jesus. They loved him. That's why Jesus said, why didn't you arrest me in the temple? They couldn't, because there would have been a riot.
Oh, interesting.
They arrest him in the middle of the night. It's Passover. Now, you're a first century Jew. You don't eat a lot of red meat. You're barbecuing all day long once a year. You're drinking a whole bunch of wine. What are you doing at 3 o'clock in the morning after a day like that?
You're asleep.
You're passed out.
Yeah.
You're not in the town square yelling, crucify him. So who are the people yelling, crucify him? It was the chief priest and his minions, because it happens in the middle of the night. It doesn't happen in the daytime. They arrest him under the cloak of darkness. Jesus didn't die over theology. He died over money. Pilate and Caiaphas, the high priest, had a money racketeering thing going on where they were exploiting people. There were priests all throughout Israel during that period of time starving to death because of how corrupt and evil Caiaphas, the high priest, was. Because he was withholding food and tithe from the priests in the land because he was becoming incredibly wealthy and rich, and him and Pilate had this money thing going on. Jesus was a threat to their money. Now, his death obviously and spiritually and theologically makes incredible impact for us, but just the facts of the situation, he died because he was a threat to money. They do this over the cloak of darkness. The other thing you hear a lot of people say today, and again, we say, Hosanna Palm Sunday, crucify him Good Friday, because we're trying to blame the Jews. That came out of the Crusader period when the Crusaders were trying to blame the Jews to justify some of the stuff they were doing. The other thing that came out of the Crusader period of time, which was anti-Semitic, is if you ask the average Christian American, how many times was Jesus whipped?
Whipped
by the cat of nine tails.
Yeah.
They would tell you 39 times, because that's what most of us were taught growing up in church, 39 times. That was a Jewish law. The Romans didn't have that law. He wasn't whipped by the Jews. He was whipped by the Romans. And they could whip you as long as they wanted. And it would literally skin a man alive.
Yeah.
They would rip eyeballs out, destroy the groin. You know, I mean, this 9 leather lashes, you know, with thorns and rock and glass woven in.
Jeez.
They would bring it down. They would twist the wrist, and then they wouldn't pull it up. They would pull it out so that it would literally rip chunks of flesh.
Okay.
One of the reasons Jesus only, because most people could live 3 days on a cross, 3 to 6 days on a cross. Now you got birds pecking out your eyes and everything. I mean, it's a miserable, miserable time. But most people could live 3 to 6 days on a cross. Jesus made it 6 hours, I believe, because of the beating he took. Was because they were terrified of Messiah figures. The Romans guards were.
Right.
So if they got a Messiah figure in custody, they were unusually cruel. And I believe they skinned him alive before they hung him on the cross. And that's one of the reasons why he only made it 6 hours, when many people could make it a couple days on a cross.
Right.
Because the beating was so severe. He lost so much blood, so much agony. I mean, it was cruel.
It
was as cruel as you could possibly imagine. And that's all Roman records and history and things like that. So that's what we know from Roman history. That's not just stuff that we see in the Bible. That's also confirmed through Roman history.
So what do you think the relationship is between Jesus and David in heaven?
Well, I think what I love about David, and I don't know if he understood this his whole life or the end of his life, but I always say David was somebody who lived under the new covenant in the old covenant. He understood the new covenant even though he was under the old covenant, because David, out of everyone else, he would say, God, because of your loving kindness, because of your mercy, because of your grace, hear me. He never said because I deserve it, because I've earned it, because I followed the law perfectly. You know, like the rich young ruler, I followed the law perfectly. Or some of the Pharisees, we follow the law perfectly.
Right.
David never admitted that. David knew he was flawed and broken. So David came to Jesus. He came to the Lord. He came to God. Again, he wouldn't know him as Jesus back then. It was just the Lord. He always came to God with the appeal of grace, meaning he understood the new covenant life, like the New Testament life, what we live with, you know, under Jesus, even though he was under the old covenant. And I think when you come to God under grace, it's his favorite thing. God doesn't need you to earn it. God doesn't need you to work for it. God doesn't need you to be good enough. He just needs you to admit you need his grace and that you can't offer him anything. Like you need him, and that's what he's looking for. Those are the people that he wants to just love and cover and help, are the people who aren't trying to act like they got it all together. Aren't trying to act like you know, I have something to offer.
Yeah.
I have nothing to offer God. I am the most broken, flawed human being. Everything I am today is because of his grace, not because I've earned it or deserved it. It's just his grace. And I think that's the way he sees David. I think he loves him deeply and dearly because God loves flawed, broken people. God loves people who've had painful lessons and mistakes and heartbreak and hurt. Jesus, and this is what drove the religious people crazy. They hated it. Why is Jesus hanging out with all these broken people? And Jesus, look, I didn't come for the well. A doctor doesn't come for the well, he comes for the sick. He comes for the broken, he comes for people with flawed. Jesus' whole mission on earth was for broken, hurt people who've had horrible past and terrible mistakes and things they regret and things they're ashamed of. That's why he came.
Right.
And so I think, to me, it's clear the way he sees King David. As flawed and broken as he is, he sees him the way he sees me.
The way that God talks about David being after his own heart, it was probably, I mean, I'm thinking about any father,
Yeah.
and you have a kid that's just really grateful to be alive, really grateful to be like in the family, but makes a bunch of mistakes. I mean, I can just see how God's like, I can't help but love the guy.
Yeah. It's the story of the prodigal. David's the prodigal son. And I think that's why God said he's a man after my own heart, because he returned to God over, and every time he failed, every time he made a mistake, every time he blew it, he would humble himself and he would cry out to God for his grace and his mercy. And that's the story of the prodigal. You know, I mean, if you want to know how God sees any of us when we've made terrible mistakes, the prodigal absolutely humiliated his father. Most Jewish men during that period of time would have had their children stoned for what he did. Killed, disowned.
Sure.
Because he absolutely, to go to a father when he's still alive and say, I want my inheritance now, is the most humiliating thing you could do to somebody back then. And so he humiliates his father. He humiliates his father's name, his family name, the town he lives in. I mean, you can imagine the talk in town about this guy, how the gossip and how hurtful.
Because David had, as a young person, said, completely out of turn to his father, Listen, I've got a huge birthright.
Well, no, I'm actually talking about the story of the prodigal son in the New Testament.
Okay.
How humiliating that would have been to the father. So Jesus is painting this ugly, ugly story.
Yeah.
And there's an older brother. And the older brother in that culture would have been expected to go to the father and say, Dad, I'll go find my younger brother and I'll bring him home. And whatever it costs me, whatever I have to do, I'll do whatever it takes. And Jesus paints this ugly older brother who's selfish and arrogant and wants, and really the older brother doesn't want the father, just wants the father's stuff too. He's just going about it a different way.
Right.
And so you have this story, and really the way Jesus tells this story is because you and I have a good older brother. We have an older brother that actually went to the father and said, Dad, I'll go. And whatever I have to do, whatever it costs me, if I have to hang on a cross, I'll hang on a cross to bring my younger brother home.
That's amazing.
And that's what happened to us. And so this story is the younger brother's coming home and he's rehearsing this speech. Dad, I don't deserve to be your son anymore. Just let me be a slave. Let me be a servant. Just give me a job. Don't let me live in the main house because I don't deserve. I've embarrassed you. I've ruined our family name. Just let me, be like a servant. And he starts going through this rehearsed speech, and the father interrupts him and says, you are my son. Put the robe on him. Put shoes on his feet. Put the ring on his finger. You're mine. And I will cover all of your shame with my robe. And everyone is going to see you and treat you as my son. You are royalty because I'm covering you. And that's what God does for us. God sees us in all of our brokenness and all of our nastiness and all of our shame and regret, mistakes that we've made. And if we come to him, he says, let me cover you. Let me cover you with me and the rest of your life. See, the story of the gospel is God treated Jesus the way you and I deserve to be treated so that God can treat us the way Jesus deserves to be treated. So Jesus goes to a cross and he takes all of our punishment, all of our shame, all of our guilt, so that we can take all of his righteousness and all of his goodness. And so for the rest of our life, God treats us as if we lived the perfect life, because God treated Jesus as the sinner. See, he loved us so much, he couldn't bear the thought of being separated from us. So he sends his son to stand in for us to take all of the punishment for the things we've done.
It's amazing.
So that the only thing left for us is forgiveness and grace. There's no judgment for us. God is not judging America. God is not judging us. Jesus took all of the judgment on himself so that there's no judgment left over. The judgment was satisfied. It was satisfied at the cross. The only thing available for us is grace and mercy if we'll ask for it.
There is, do you know of a pastor named Joshua Broome?
Sounds very familiar.
He's I just all of a sudden am aware of him online, and then I see these sermons, and then I hear a story. It sounds like he was like a big shot porn star, and now he has a ministry.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I've seen stuff on him on articles.
Yeah, but it's interesting. More and more, I think that if I feel, and it's so appealing, that if anyone, any minister feels like they want to really reach anyone, truly reach someone, then it's be as authentic as possible and recognize all of the incredible faults that we all have. And I love that what you're saying is that it's not, I have these faults, but I also love God. It's that I have these faults and I love God. And I'm committed to taking care of all of this and addressing all of that. But it's not a but, it's an and.
And it's not because God's mad at us for any of that stuff. It's because his heart breaks. Just like when I see,
make him mad.
When my son was in the NICU when he was born for 2 weeks. Very traumatic. Very traumatic, sitting in that little glass box. My heart as a father ached for him. Not because I was angry at him. I was never angry at him. I was never mad at him when he was in
Sure.
that glass box. I was mad at the sickness he was dealing with, but I was never mad at him. And I think we need to have a clear view of God, because so many times we think God's mad at us. God's disappointed in me. God is not disappointed in you. God aches for you because he sees what that stuff is doing to you. And so we don't not do bad things because God says don't do bad things. We don't do bad things because they're stupid. They hurt us. They penalize us. And God loves us. And so all of the rules of the Bible, none of them were to take our fun away and make us slaves and live this horrible religious existence. They were just to protect us. Like, I've got rules for my son. Don't run in the street after the ball. That's a rule in my family.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not because I hate my son. It's not because I'm legalistic. It's not because I'm this domineering father that wants to control his behavior and take all of his fun away. It's because I don't want him to get hit by a car.
Sure.
Everything in the Bible was written with that motivation. And so if you see something in the Bible you don't like, take some time and meditate on the why behind that.
You know, it's so funny.
Before you just criticize it.
It's so funny. I'll give you an example that I think about all the time. And this is an Old Testament thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, the crustaceans on the bottom of the floor, anything that's that's basically lives and survives off the gunk that's off the bottom, don't eat it.
Yeah.
And you think, oh my God, well, crabs are so terrific and lobsters are so terrific. Part of me thinks, wouldn't it be sort of entertaining? It's like heaven. You go to heaven, you find out all the things that you didn't learn, everything. They go, dude, COVID? Guess who started that? Lobster. So it's like all of a sudden you realize all these terrible diseases. Yeah. You guys should never have been eating so many pigs. Pigs eat garbage. It's like, what are we doing?
Well, and it's also understand that let's talk about kosher for a moment. Meat and cheese. The Bible says don't boil a baby goat in its mother's milk. So we now have, in Jewish culture, they have now the ruling that you don't eat cheeseburgers, you don't eat pepperoni pizza,
right?
You don't mix meat and cheese. What that was an ancient Syrian fertility ritual where you would boil a baby goat in a mother's milk so that your wife could get pregnant. It was like superstitious voodoo.
Right.
And all God is saying with that is trust me for children. Don't trust these rituals. That was the heart behind it. Excuse me.
I got some water.
I'm glad we can edit. So what they did in the Jewish culture, and they admit to this, is they call it building a fence around the Torah.
Okay.
So if the actual law says this, we're going to build a fence and bring it out here so that if you trip and fall, you're not at risk of falling over the cliff.
Mm.
And so it says, don't boil a baby goat in its mother's milk. So we're going to bring the law out here and say, don't eat a cheeseburger. Don't eat a pepperoni pizza. And they know they do that. And that's why there's all these extra laws. And a lot of times what Jesus was attacking in the gospel was all the extra laws. Had nothing to do with what was actually written in the Old Testament.
Right.
It was the traditional stuff that they added on top of it. And they didn't do it because they were bad people. They had a pure heart in doing it. They just wanted to love God. They wanted to love God more.
Sure.
And so it's not this horribly negative thing that they did, but it did become very negative in trying to live it out.
What's the one there's another one, which is you can't, as soon as a woman starts having her period, you got to scoot her away from the village for a while.
Yeah.
It's like
just unclean.
It's part of it.
A lot
if you
of
wanted to have, they got to be like, have you dealt with them when they're on that? Like, come on.
And honestly, if you really want to know, a lot of those ceremonial laws, we call those the ceremony. There's the moral law, don't murder people, and there's the ceremonial law, wash your hands this way.
Right.
The ceremonial law was a lot of personal hygiene stuff because they were slaves for 400 years. They didn't know personal hygiene.
Oh yeah, man.
And so a lot of that had to do with just personal hygiene because when they were slaves, nobody cared. Someone got a scab, it turned into an infection, they died, no big deal.
Yeah.
Well, God's now like, look, I don't want that to turn into an infection. I don't want you to die. So here's how I want you to handle that scab.
Fascinating.
And so the majority of that was personal hygiene issues to protect the people's health, not to come up with these arbitrary laws. Sure. None of it was arbitrary.
Yeah.
All of it had reason behind it, and it was all motivated out of God's love for their well-being. But we just, because Christianity has such a bad reputation, we automatically assumed it was all, God's just a mean God, just randomly throwing out stuff.
So going back to David, the relationship that he had with his mentor is also so heartbreaking, because to have his the king that he had just saved,
Yeah. Loved him.
who
Loved him.
yeah, and then all of a sudden that guy gets jealous of him and tries to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that would really beat down anybody.
And that's also part of why it says David was a man after God's heart, because David honored what God honored. David realized that, okay, God gave Saul this position, not me.
King Saul, yeah.
King Saul. It's not my position to change what God has done. And as long as God has set him up as king, I'm going to honor him as king, even if he's trying to kill me. Now, not a lot of people have that level of loyalty and that level of honor in their life. David did. Part of the reasons why God understood him as a man after my own heart, because he realized the office of king is holy. God set up that office. God anointed Saul. God put him there as king. Who am I to touch what is holy?
Right.
Who am I to disagree with God? If God wants him king, and God's used many evil kings throughout the Bible. Nebuchadnezzar, my servant. Nebuchadnezzar was one of the most corrupt, evil kings of Babylon.
Sure.
And the Bible says God calls him my servant. Why? Because God used him to get some stuff done. Even though he was an evil, wicked person, God used him, for the advantage of certain things. And so David understood that this is God's doing, not mine, and I'm going to honor what is God's. I'm going to treat what is God's as if it's holy and if it's perfect. Now, he didn't do that in every situation, because Bathsheba was God's daughter, and he didn't treat her with honor and respect and holiness. And so,
right.
So there was, there's definitely a case where it was like pick and choose. But on certain issues, he really did understand that no matter how I feel, no matter how I'm treated, I'm going to serve the anointed. I'm going to serve the king, regardless of what the king wants to do to me.
Well, okay, so you just brought up an interesting point. It's like how and Nebuchadnezzar is a great example, but another example who I think is so interesting is just Goliath.
Yeah,
who apparently God used and who knows, Goliath could have been just amazing. He could have mentored kids in the neighborhood. He could have, he really could have been who knows, maybe an amazing husband.
Yeah.
And, a very loyal warrior to a community that he grows up in.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's any hard feelings on Goliath's point. He's like, dude, I was just trying to be the best soldier I can. I didn't know I was fighting against literally God's whole favorite dude, and his whole army is like.
Well, I have a whole backstory.
I
mean, again, one of the things that's happened in the last 20 years in the entertainment industry is there's now a backstory on every evil character.
Yeah, what's Goliath?
Every bad guy in every movie now has a backstory that causes us to have sympathy for both the protagonist and the antagonist.
Right.
It's like there's never a bad guy anymore that we can just hate in a movie.
Yeah.
Because they all have a backstory that made him bad. And that's intentional to play the sympathy card, and it's shifting our culture. It's causing people to look at everything differently in life, and I'm not saying it's wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying it has shifted the culture that we live in right now. We ask different questions now of things than we ever asked before, but it's all rooted in that whole thing of there's a backstory to every bad guy, and there is. Every character in the Bible has a backstory. Every character is the Bible, and every character in the Bible has been through different tragic things and flaws and heartaches and did good things. Like even when I was a very, very, like I call it, an evil person for the things I was doing, because it was just terrible what I was doing, I still did a lot of good things.
You did a lot of good things. You meant a lot to me. You were really inspired me to try to do better.
Yeah.
You were terrific. It's funny. It's shocking to me to hear that you were going through such a tough time, because you were sort of glowing with positivity, and you were so it's inspirational.
And they were both true. I genuinely loved you. I genuinely loved God. I genuinely loved what I was getting to do.
Yeah.
But I lived in such shame and guilt that I just had to keep it buried in secret and hidden. It was like the thing I related to the most that I've seen. It was Dexter, just like this dark passenger that every once in a while would take over, and I was doing my best to keep it controlled, keep it under wraps, trying to keep it from destroying the rest of my life. Because I honestly didn't believe I could ever get free.
Yeah.
I thought I would live this way the rest of my life, and just had to do my best to manage it until I really began to understand grace. Because honestly, what kept me in it was not knowing grace. I didn't believe in
Did
grace.
you ever find yourself thinking, man, I just hope that I get caught? Like I would like the jig to be up so
Yeah.
that I can,
Yeah.
because there's so many things I'm hiding, and
But you have to keep up with so many lies. You have to
that's-
keep up with so many stories. You got
keeping
to,
up lies is
you're constantly covering your tracks.
Oh,
I mean, it's horrible. It was the most painful, and it's not, you don't love it when you're in the middle of it. You hate it. Like you hate it. You hate who you are. Yeah, I mean, it does it make you high for the moment when you're getting your addiction met? Yeah, absolutely. That's why you do it. But you hate it right when you're done. You hate the rest of your life, the rest of the time. And then you want to go get high again. For me, it was sex. You want to go get that release again so that you can forget how miserable you are.
sure.
And it would last, 30 minutes to an hour maybe. Then you'd be miserable again.
Yeah.
But it's just a cycle that you're trapped. You're addicted. You just, people say, well, just stop. Well, they don't realize that sex addiction is a chemical addiction. Pornography releases the same chemicals in the back of your brain that heroin release.
Does it? Wow.
Yeah, it releases all those chemicals that make your body feel that feeling it has, and your brain creates all these new neural pathways, and when the train leaves the station, you can't get it back. And so, I mean, there were things that would trigger me in the daytime, and all of a sudden the train would leave the station, and it's 100% premeditation to get my next fix.
It's so wild as someone who has an addiction, to wake up in the morning and go, man, I'm going to turn it around. Today, I'm not going to, I thankfully have woke up without maybe a hangover, and I'm like, I'm going to make some good choices today. And I can remember so many times going to a liquor store, like in the morning, and going, this is not what I want to do. This is not, and even looking at the guy at the liquor store selling me and I thought to myself, God, I wish he just wouldn't sell this to me.
Yeah.
Go, I'm going to take it, and then go, I don't want to do this. And now I'm drinking it, and then having a very short period where, oh my gosh, and I have all the fears, all the anxiety, it's gone for a few minutes. And I'm like feeling so creative and stuff. And then the rest of the day would be spent trying to cover up or try to get undrunk with pills or something, and then I'd have to balance that and then that, and just like why did I do it
and
again?
that feeling in the liquor store, I don't know if you felt this way, but what I felt like is I was literally watching myself in a movie. So I'm having this internal dialogue up here, watching myself like in the liquor store buying liquor or whatever it was I was doing, and it's like I was there, but I wasn't there. I'm like watching myself do it, and I'm having this dialogue like, don't do it. And I'm like watching myself, and I know I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying don't do it in my head to make myself
Who's
feel
gonna
better.
do it? Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy being an addict.
And then you hate yourself.
Yeah.
But I can very much easily relate to you saying, you go, yeah, I was going through a really difficult time and I hated myself, but I also loved you and really was excited about other things I was working on. Because sometimes I will talk to people and I'll maybe discuss a period of time where I felt, like I wanted to end everything.
Yeah.
Or really hated myself, or really was just overwhelmed with a lot of poor choices. And they go, you seem so fun then. And you go, hey, I was also probably enjoying the company that I was keeping with you, and having a ball with that.
Yeah.
I probably loved even going to church, loved all this other things. And
to me, it's the and sign. You got to reconcile the fact that it's an and. It's an and. Both can be true at the same time. One doesn't cancel out the other.
Yeah, that's so profound. That's so profound. Okay, now we're going back to David again. He got into some real trouble because of his whole thing with Bathsheba, and God punished him severely, and then punished the people of Israel severely. And I feel at one point he got to a place where he had kind of made peace with what he had done, and stopped kind of beating himself up over it.
Yeah.
But he didn't stop making mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, the story was, they had a child, the child that was the product of rape, the product of the affair. And I don't think God killed the baby, because that's not God's nature. I think God allows things to happen. God doesn't every time supernaturally intervene.
Right.
But that baby died And there, whatever the complications were, that baby died. Maybe it was the stress of the situation just affected the pregnancy. Maybe it was just,
tons of babies died.
Tons of baby die at birth, especially back then because they don't have technology and science, everything we have today. The most dangerous time in a woman's life back then was childbirth. That's when many women died. So for whatever reason, there were complications. David, while the baby was having complications, David prayed and prayed and prayed and fasted and prayed and mourned for the baby to be healed, the baby to come through. It wasn't. As soon as the baby died, David got up, washed his clothes, put on his robe, and went to work. And people thought he would be traumatic after the death. And he was actually said, listen, I've got to come to terms with, the reality is the baby's gone. There's nothing I can do about it. So I need to let go and move on with my life. And he moved on. Now, he made tons of mistakes. He numbered the people, which was an act of not trusting God. It was trusting your own ego, your own, like, how strong am I? How big am I? And so he numbered the people. And what was amazing about David is God gave him like 3 choices of how to go through stuff. And he chose the personal choice, because he wanted the choice that affected him the most, not just punished all the people.
Right.
So you see that with David, it was always an and. It was always like he had a good heart for the people and he would make stupid decisions and make mistakes. And you see that all throughout his life, both were always true. He was never evil. He was a good person who made terrible decisions.
Terrible decisions.
And I think any of us that are human, that are at least a little bit self-aware, that are not living prideful or self-righteous lives, would say, that's me. I make mistakes all the time. And I do have a good heart. I do want to genuinely do good things in my life. And yet at times, Paul, all of Romans chapter 7, the Apostle Paul wrote over half the New Testament. He outlines this entire struggle. I want to do what's right and I don't do it. And then I don't want to do what's wrong and I keep doing it. And that, he's just talking about the wrestle.
What do you think Paul's struggle was? I mean, I think that's a big question.
The thorn in the flesh?
Yeah.
Well, if you understand how to interpret the Bible, you have to let the Bible interpret the Bible. So what is a thorn in the flesh in Scripture? Well, if you go back to the Old Testament, thorn in the flesh was always a people group. God told Joshua, if you don't deal with these people, they're going to be a thorn in your flesh. So Paul's struggle was not he had physical issues, but that wasn't the thorn in his flesh. I don't think it was a sex addiction. A lot of people say, Paul had a sex addiction. That was the thorn in his flesh.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
No, it 100% was not. 100% was not. It was the religious teachers that were always attacking his message, because he would go into a town, he would try to present the grace of Jesus, the gospel, and the religious people would come and say, no, you've got to earn it. You got to work for it. That was his thorn in the flesh. They were always attacking everything he was trying to build.
So he's like, man, my issue, God, is I'm just so tired of dealing with these stupid people
100%
that you have sent me to talk to, but I hate them and they are so stupid.
Yeah, 100%. And if you look at Paul, he went through a lot of trauma at the hands of people. I mean, shipwrecked, beaten, scourged, stoned, not recreationally, but actually with rocks. Yeah. Those are traumatic experiences.
Traumatic.
And those were at the hands of people. So he went through a lot of pain.
It's funny how now trauma can, someone gets yelled at by their boss or something and they go through trauma. Yeah. And when we think of people from the Bible, we don't really give them that much credit. I'm like, man, think about Isaac. Several kids and then, it's like, think of who?
Isaac, man. Imagine being a 17-year-old kid or however old he was, being tied up by your father, put on an altar, and dad's about to take a knife and put it through your heart. And then all of a sudden God stops him.
That story.
Now we think of Abraham in that story, but we don't think of Isaac. So years later, when Jacob lies to Isaac and steals the blessing, what happens to Isaac? He has an emotional break. He has the most severe PTSD where he's shaking. You read in the story, and if you talk to any clinical psychologist, you'll tell you that trembling comes from severe PTSD. We don't look at these characters as very human.
Can you imagine how crazy that would be?
Yeah.
Dad, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why am I on this altar?
He never went on another father-son trip with his
dad. We're never doing this again, Dad.
Never going camping with Dad again.
Yeah. Dad goes, listen, you just got to trust me.
That's why he became a mama's boy. Isaac became a mama's boy. When he married his wife, he brought her into his mom's tent. He was I mean, the kid was, he had some psychological wounds and trauma, and we see the PTSD coming out of him later in life. You see it in David. You see it in so many characters of the Bible. We don't, because
David
these
probably
are
got
characters.
roughed up by his brothers
Yeah.
nonstop. His dad,
Yeah.
it felt like his dad didn't dig
Bullied,
him.
made fun of, rejected, abandoned.
Yeah.
These are real traumas that people go through. And you're right, it's not the same as being yelled at by your boss, which is our culture right now.
Yeah.
I mean, but there are a lot of people listening to this who have been through some very real trauma, horrible trauma, like things that should have never happened to them,
Sure.
trauma. And it's hard. I'm going to be working on this this Sunday in our church, talking about trauma and how we work through trauma, and not just sugarcoat it or act, well, just pray through rather, and just take this like hyper spiritual nonsense of trying to deal with it. But really, how do we deal with the trauma that we've been through? I have PTSD, from things that I've been through. Certain people text me or call me and I start having an anxiety panic attack because I'm like, okay, what's about to happen? What's about to happen?
Wow.
And I've had to realize I've had to start working through this in my life recently because, there are things that I've been through that have been very traumatic and painful and hard, betrayals, wounds, mistakes I've made, mistakes that have happened to me. And so it's just all of us, if we're going to be human for any period of time, we're going to deal with this stuff.
The other great or other incredible thing that I think blows my mind about David is that when he needed a weapon randomly, he was in a tabernacle, and this is well after David and Goliath, and as he's running from King Saul, and of all things, he comes across a priest that goes, hey, we actually have we have a sword that you probably will recognize, and it's the one. It was Goliath's old sword we have here, and now David is big enough to use it and to really appreciate it, and it's amazing to me that even through our journeys through hell, God here and there provides us with things that we need along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Just another bit of trivia from the life of David that I'm not going to fully figure out till I get to ask him in heaven.
Okay.
But part of the story that always trips me out is after he kills Goliath, he cuts Goliath's head off, and then he takes the head back to Jerusalem. Like he leaves everything else, but he takes the head back with him.
Okay.
Now, some Jewish scholars and historians believe that where he put the head outside of the city of Jerusalem became Golgotha, the place of the skull, where Jesus would one day be crucified over. And so there's some parallels you can make there, but it's just an interesting part of the story that I don't know the answer to. I wasn't there. I'm only 49, so I wasn't there. I didn't see it happen.
Right.
But I will ask one day to figure out, like, hey, why'd you bring the head back?
Yeah.
Like, what'd you do with the head? What was the meaning of bringing the head back? Showing off to your friends, hey, look what I got.
Do you ever think that you want to talk to Goliath and be like, I realized you were growing up in a completely different environment. It's too bad that we had to go against each other.
Yeah, I'll share my theory with you, Goliath, on Goliath sometime, but it's not made for the podcast audience.
Okay.
It's a bit out there. So I've got some theories on Goliath, but maybe after we talk about it, we could do a podcast on that one day, but it's a bit out there.
Okay. I mean, I have a real hunger for all Goliath stories. So, but okay. I think that it's like when I got rid of someone when I was at the Dream Center and I was really rock bottom and I went to sleep and I was like, oh man, once again, I've dug a deeper, I had the best intentions. I mean, I had days before checking myself in the Dream Center. I thought, I'm going to take care of this. I'd even called, we have a pastor in Tulsa, Bill Shear.
Yeah.
I called him. He had made arrangements for me to go out to Tulsa to be part of this, some kind of like men's retreat. And I thought, this is exactly what I need. And when I made the choice to go, I was sober and I thought, I'm going to do this. And I think I couldn't find my passport and realized I couldn't go out there. And then the next thing I know, had made myself even drunker and had all these pills that I was like, I'm about to throw these away, and then didn't, and started taking them. And so I was just so beat up I thought, man, I was so close to turning this around, and I was in one of the bunk beds in that
Mm,
rehab that they have at the Dream Center,
yeah.
and this guy, and I was just like, I hate you, Tyler, I hate you,
Wow.
and this guy put his hand on me, and he goes, hey, I want to pray for you, and I was like in a bunk above this like male
Mm.
prostitute that had been beat up and needed a place to stay, named Princess Skittles. And it was just in this weird and it was just in this bizarre environment.
Mm.
And he goes, I want to pray for you. And he goes, I pray that you will forgive yourself. And the craziest thing happened is I did in that moment. And I just felt this wash. And I don't think I could have done anything without that. And I think that's part of what you're saying, where you have to acknowledge, go, you know what? I do. I love my family. I love God. I love everything. And I'm having a hard time, and I'm going to address it.
Yeah. Hardest person to forgive is yourself in the journey,
It's so wild.
because because you tell yourself you should know better. I should know better.
Yeah.
I've had every opportunity. I should know better. And we're hard on ourselves. Sometimes we just got to be kind. Like life's not easy, and God's not disappointed or shocked. I always relate it to like my journey with God. It's like when my son started to walk, he would take a few steps and fall over, and I wasn't like, you idiot. What's wrong with you? It's not that hard. People doing it for thousands of years. Just put one foot in front of the other and walk.
Yeah.
No, I would pick him up and say, come on, we'll get this. We'll get this. And I think so often I want to look at myself like a teenager, and God is looking at me like a toddler. And every time I fall down, he's not angry. He's not yelling at me. He's just like, come on, let me pick you back up. Let me pick you
Yeah.
up. We're going to get this. We're going to get this. And the beautiful thing is Jesus was here. Like, we have a God that's not some distant Roman Greek God that used human beings as pawns and toys in their sick game. We have a God that came into the mess of everything, that experienced all the hurt, all the pain, all the betrayal, all the abuse. And that's why he can relate to us, because he knows what it feels like. He knows what we went through, and he knows how difficult it is. And he's not disappointed or mad. He just wants to help us get up and love us and say, you're going to, just like with my son, I didn't get mad when he fell down, when he tried to walk.
That's a great
I just got him back
analogy.
up until he could learn to walk. And it's not quick. It wasn't quick for him to learn how to walk. And it wasn't quick for him to learn how, it took time. It took years for him to really learn how to run well. Same is true for us. And I think we just have to be kind to ourselves sometimes, because we're so hard on ourselves, because we're looking at ourselves like we're teenagers, and God's looking at us like toddlers.
It's I really like that analogy, and I have another thought to it, which is that, my son River is 2 years older than Violet, and we're all playing pickleball as a family, and he couldn't be more just amazing at it at such a young age, and he's been killing it. But he also has 2 years over Violet.
Yeah.
And so Violet is just getting to where she can kind of return the ball, and she's getting, and I find the thing that makes me happiest is seeing her in moments where it's not even her successes with each shot, but it's seeing her determined to do better with each shot than the one before.
Yeah.
And when I see her grow in confidence or something like that, it's like I'm more excited about that than the actual act of a perfect swing or a perfect throw or something like that. And when I see like grit in her or something like that, and it just makes me
so beautiful.
So it's like, I think that's got to be with God too, as he looks down on us and he's just like, oh man.
And you're not angry at her when she makes a mistake or misses a shot.
Yeah, totally.
You love her, and you want her to be at her best because you love her. And that's God's heart and view for us. And that's why we just got to be kind to ourselves, because it's a journey. It's not easy.
Totally.
People have been through very painful and difficult things, and you can't compare your journey with someone else. You can't say, well, they were abused like this and I was only abused like this, and so theirs was worse than mine. No, we all feel it the same. We all hurt, we all have trauma, we all have pain, and we all have got to process through it, and it's not easy. It's not, and it takes a long time. That to bring things a little bit full circle with my father, he was out visiting me. So he was gone for over 10 years. I didn't see him. He married our babysitter. We had a babysitter. He left with her, married her, had a new family, didn't want anything to do with our family, was gone.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him again until I was an adult, until I was actually at the Dream Center. And, I forgave him. So I thought, because that's what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to be a good Christian, so I'm going to forgive him. And I tried, and I was nice to him and cordial around him when I would see him, maybe once a year, once every 2 years. And he was at my house last year. We're sitting in the backyard, and I'm sitting there, and I just felt like God puts on my heart, why can't you really forgive him and let him go?
Oh, wow.
Because my father still beats himself up over what he did. He still feels ashamed of what he did. He still beats himself up, and I can see it. And what I realize is I secretly relish it.
Yeah.
Every time he beats himself up, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel justified. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I say to him, because God really prompts my heart, and I say, Dad, I want you to know that I forgive you. And I want you to know that everything I did in my life, I chose to do. You didn't make me do it.
Yeah.
And he said, no, son, it was my fault. I hurt you so bad that you would have never done those things if I hadn't. I said, Dad, listen, I chose to do everything I did. You did not make me do it. I want you to know that I love you and I forgive you. And I want you to let go of yourself and forgive yourself.
It's amazing.
Something happened in my dad that day that shifted, and he's been different ever since.
Whoa.
We have a very enjoyable relationship now. So 3 months ago, he brought his wife out to stay with us. This was my babysitter that he left for.
Wow.
I was always cordial to her if I saw her at events, but I've never really spent time with her, didn't really want to. She's coming to stay at our house. And I feel like, God just prompts my heart, treat her like royalty. I'm like, royalty? I don't even want her in my house.
Right.
What do you mean treat her like royalty? But I say, okay, so I've gotten to know my sister, which is their daughter, which we'd never had a relationship until recently.
Right.
So I called her, I said, what do I do for your mom to take care of her? She told me. So she comes, we're taking good care of her. Me and her are up early one morning, we're in the backyard having coffee. It's just me and her. I've never had a conversation with her. It's always just at a group, hi, very, but never. So we're sitting in the backyard, we're just talking about nothing.
Okay.
All of a sudden I turn over to her and she burst into tears, sobbing, uncontrollable sobbing. And she's like, you could never love somebody like me. You could never, what I did was horrible. I destroyed your childhood. I destroyed your family. I destroyed your life. I don't know how you could ever love me. And I'm sitting there and this sick sense of power came over me. I can destroy this woman right now. I can say something nasty and cruel and get my revenge and absolutely crush her. And that thought just sat there for a minute in my head. And then I just got up and I went over and I put her in a bear hug and I held her tight and I said, I love you.
Amazing.
And I forgive you. And I want you to be a part of my family. I want my boys to know you. I want you in our life. The miracle that week, because that was like the second day, the miracle by the end of the week, she was sliding on cloud 9. She felt forgiveness. She felt grace. It changed her.
It's amazing.
The miracle, though, is by the end of the week, I had the deepest sense of love for the two of them that I've ever had. I haven't forgotten what they did, but I love them right now in a way that, I don't know if I could love them more than I love them right now, even if it never happened. And so what that did is it did more for me than for her. Yes, sure, she felt it, but when I truly forgave her and let go, it set me free. They say unforgiveness is like drinking poison, hoping the other person dies.
Right.
And when I forgave her, she was not the person that got set free that day. I was the person that got set free that day. And it's part of the healing journey. You got to work through the traumas and you got to go back to the points where the roots really laid in, and you got to heal and process. And part of that healing is forgiving. Now, forgiving doesn't mean what they did was okay. And forgiving isn't minimizing what they did to you. Forgiving isn't saying it wasn't a big deal. It was a very big deal.
Right.
Forgiving isn't even restoration. Sometimes that's not wise. If you've been physically, sexually abused, forgiving the person that did it doesn't mean you should ever be in a relationship with them. Forgiveness doesn't mean you can't testify in court. If they did something illegal and criminal to you, you can forgive them and still give a testimony in court. So I think a lot of us struggle with forgiveness because we don't understand what it is or what it isn't. And so what I've learned is I've had to help people understand, okay, forgiveness is not these things. Forgiveness is simply a choice to say, listen, I'm not going to hold it against them anymore. I'm going to let go so that my heart can be free.
Got it.
It might not ever do it. They may not ever respond to me. They may be dead. We may need to forgive someone who's already passed away. So it's not even for them. It's more for our heart to find freedom.
Dude, forgiveness is like the key. I mean, it's like the key. Resentments hold us back from so many things.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is the key. Dude, beautiful talk.
We've been all over the map today.
Yeah.
I know you wanted
love
to go down the road with King David, but we went all over the road today.
Oh, we covered it. I'm so happy. Dude, I love you, man. Great. I'm so
Tyler,
happy you came.
love you, man.